Coming up on Up at Noon, the Han Solo movie is mere months away. How much do we know about it, and how much do we care? Meanwhile, will Spidey show up in Venom? Some rumors are saying so. And oh, by the way, there's a new Aliens game in the works. All that and more right now on Up at Noon. Well, hello again once more from Up at Noon. That's us.
That's us. We did it.
Hey.
And you did it too, because you returned. Or this is your first episode, and possibly your last,
Yeah.
or maybe one of many. Maybe this will be the beginning of a big, long relationship.
They're gone. Don't worry.
They're gone.
Okay.
Up at Noon is our weekly comedy variety show here at IGN. We cover the news. We also do really stupid stuff. We put toys on the desk. You know the drill by now. I'm Brian Altano. This is Max Scoville. You can watch Up at Noon every single week on IGN, Twitch, Roku, Apple TV, Xbox One, PS4, Wowza, Yamza, Yowza, and Jim Jam. Jim Jam is not available yet. It never will be. We lied.
We're coming to that new homemade streaming service where you look through a cardboard tube and you use your imagination. That's a hot one. So just imagine what's happening out there.
Just quick PSA, and some of you are real hungry out there. This is the perfect month to buy expired Halloween candy.
No,
it's only a few months old, and it's still pretty good. So
if you want to start pre-ordering some Valentine's candy, well, good news. You can.
This is actually the cheapest day historically to buy ornaments. So this is the one if you really want to get out there.
Actually, I was at Target last night. They still have some like stocking stuffers on sale.
Really?
So if you want stocking stuffers, head down to Target.
Okay, let's get into the news this week. Big comic book news is happening this year, and then very tiny comic book news is happening this year.
I get it.
And it's the one that no one's really talking about.
Yeah, so,
Ant-Man and the Wasp.
So this is messed up. The first Ant-Man movie, which is super fun, in spite of that kind of weird, like Edgar Wright almost directed it, it kind of got jerked around in development. It came out, it was great, it was super fun, but
Yeah.
it came out immediately in the shadow of Avengers Age of Ultron. I think that was that one, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, and it was like, that was the biggest, hugest kind of collaboration of all the superheroes, and then they were like, here's a little tiny man, a new one you haven't seen before. And you're like, okay, that's cool. We got Ant-Man. He's shown up in a few other movies. He was in Civil War. That's fun and exciting. And then the same exact thing is happening after Infinity War. So like Ant-Man and the Wasp, here's our first look at them. That's Evangeline Lilly as the Wasp. You can't tell because she's dressed like the Wasp. And then, you know, the costumes. And people have been saying this is going to be kind of a rom-com, but with superheroes, which I'm super down with.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, like, I'm excited about this movie. I think I might be more excited about this than I am for Infinity War.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, Infinity War.
No, you're the only person.
I know. But that's the thing is, Infinity War. We know that's going to be huge. We know it's going to be giant and epic and crazy and like off the charts, nuts and huge. But it's also going to be kind of a known quantity.
Right.
And we've seen this with the kind of Avengers stuff because that's very much the kind of like that is the tentpole Marvel movie. Those are the big ones.
Sure.
And it's going to be sort of like when you have a big party and you have a million little tiny conversations, you don't really have any one-on-one time with any one person. Whereas Ant-Man and the Wasp is going to be focusing on those two characters. Maybe new characters are going to show up. We don't know for sure, but like, I don't know anything about that movie. We don't have a trailer for it. We don't really know much about the Wasp. She was in the first one, but this is going to be this is going to be interesting.
I do like that this movie is more of a known quantity now in that people will know what to expect going into it, whereas the last one they had to basically be like, you like the Avengers, right?
Yeah.
Remember the Avengers?
Well,
I think Ant-Man can kind of stand on his own now.
I mean, Ant-Man was pretty much a comedy, and
Yeah.
it was marketed as just another superhero movie, and it was like, maybe don't do that. And then everyone saw it, and they're like, this is actually really funny. And I think after Thor Ragnarok, they're probably a little more open about being like, no, it's going to be funny, it's cool, and people go see it anyway because it's a Marvel movie and it's 2018. Anyway, on the subject of bugs that are superheroes, some other bugs that are superheroes, or arachnids, if you will, are of course Spider-Man and Venom and Carnage and all of those folks. As we know, the Venom movie is underway right now. This is starring Tom Hardy. IGN got a first look at Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock, which is just Tom Hardy wearing a shirt.
Takes place here in San Francisco, actually.
It does, yeah. And there's a couple of rumors floating around. First of all, on the right-hand side here is an image that Tom Hardy posted to his Instagram, which is this sketchy sort of fan art of Venom and Carnage. And he put that up, and everyone's like, whoa, is that Carnage? And then he promptly deleted it without saying anything. So, is Carnage going to be in this movie? I feel like that's kind of a safe bet, you know, like as far as.
I'm with you. I'm weird. I know a lot of like hardcore comic book fans aren't really crazy about like the whole Venom Carnage stuff. It gets pretty goofy, really. But I actually really liked it. I thought that it made for some really sort of vibrant covers and really awesome illustrations and just really fun stories. Very wet, just a lot of just gross paint getting thrown everywhere. So I'm excited to see something like that happen. That being said, that's sort of like taking the biggest villain that Venom has, or the biggest kind of character in his universe outside of Spider-Man, and throwing him against it day one.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and that's the problem that I think that both Fox and Sony have demonstrated that they are very bad at handling. Like they're very prone to throwing, and I mean Warner Brothers for that effect too, trying to throw as many characters into a movie as possible, which is exactly what screwed up Spider-Man 3. Right. Or Dawn of Justice. Like if you put too many characters in there, then there's nothing to get excited about or look forward to. Like just tease it, be gentle with it. I believe it's going to be I want to say it's a separation anxiety or like symbiote wars. It's some Venom arc that I haven't read that I should have read. But it's kind of teasing that maybe they're going to be sort of other variations of Venom that are different kind of symbiote versions, and he has to fight all of them.
Eventually he has like a son and everything, right?
Something like that.
Yeah,
and Peter Parker's like high school bully winds up being him, but he's in space and he's part of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Anyway, other rumor that's floating around is apparently Tom Holland has been spotted at the Venom set. And this is after Sony has said a bunch of times that no, Spider-Man's not going to be in this movie. And we're like, okay, well, who cares then? It's Venom without Spider-Man. Venom is still cool, but like, come on, it's this whole, that's like, hey, we're making a Joker movie, but there's not going to be any Batman. You're like, great, I guess people will still see it, but it just seems like a swing and a miss. So what's Tom Holland doing? Is he just checking it out? Is he hanging out?
So, and that's covering like the legal side of it, where there's all the red tape about which character can go where and for how long. On the sort of narrative side of it, what is a New York City high school kid doing in San Francisco?
School trip.
Oh.
Yeah.
Happens all the time.
Yep. School trip.
I grew up on the East Coast. We used to go to San Francisco every other day for field trips.
I don't know.
Down here.
I mean, he could also just show up on
that rice.
Maybe it cuts to him and he's like watching the news and he's like, wow, there sure are a lot of symbiotes in San Francisco. Too bad I can't afford to go there because I'm 15. I don't know.
And then Iron Man's like, do you want to go fight a prisoner?
Yeah, exactly. But I'm excited about this. I really, really hope this movie pans out and they get it right. I think that
Me too.
I think that Deadpool is at this point arguably the best modern X-Men movie. Oh hey, there's the
That's how you get Tom Holland to show up somewhere. You
just whisper his name. What's all that white stuff coming off of him? How odd.
It's his spider sense. It's tingling.
But I think that Deadpool's this character who exists connected to so many other characters, and they managed to do a really good job of him, really only having like Colossus and a handful of kind of D-listers in there. And then Venom's, I hope they do the same way. Maybe they take some cues from it. Obviously, totally different type of character, but again, it's this sort of anti-hero. And if they have, I don't know, if Tom Holland shows up and he's like, I don't know, maybe he's reading the news, or I don't know what he'll be doing.
We've said for years, and I think the audience agrees, that and sort of critics, but the Marvel movies sort of mostly do have a villain problem. I think that some of them do better. I think that Thor Ragnarok did a great job of establishing a cool villain. She was awesome. But I think they're very one-dimensional. They're just pure evil. So maybe kind of like taking one, building him up from the ground floor and humanizing him as this is an established character, this character gets his own movie. Like, why don't villains get their own movie? Everyone's like, oh, this person gets their own movie, this person. But like Marvel villains don't really get their own films.
Yeah, because they've always been kind of just building towards, they've all been kind of stepping stones towards Thanos for the most part.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a bummer, but like.
Magneto's got a bunch of backstory established in all the Fox movies.
I mean, they can't even, but I mean, he's in another category entirely. But I mean, if we wind up at some point down the road, I don't know what's going to happen with this. I mean, like Disney bought 20th Century Fox, so we're probably going to see X-Men in the MCU at some point. If we see Venom show up with Spider-Man, like I'm super down with that. That sounds awesome. And if Tom Holland's just hanging around the set, well, I hope he has a nice time.
Yeah.
Anyway, the really big news that came out this week was, of course, Nintendo's crazy new announcement of the Nintendo Labo.
Yeah, that's what I've said that 20 times today, so that's what we're sticking with. The Nintendo Labo was revealed yesterday. Nintendo, ahead of the reveal, to sort of buffer any expectations, said this is for kids, and for those of you who are kids at heart, that didn't stop millions of man-babies from being very upset at this. And you know what? They're right.
Yeah.
Because this is for baby kids.
It's for children.
It's for little wussy, nerdy little baby boys and girls.
We are adult men, and we don't like the baby children toy things.
We don't like it. We're tough, real manly adult men.
They try to get us all pumped, showing us factory shots.
Hell
like
no.
It's a Terminator film directed by James Cameron. It's not.
Yeah.
It's baby children's cardboard toys.
Yeah, it's basically Duplo, but the cat will eat it.
Yeah.
This is stuff for children.
Yeah, and it's biodegradable, so it won't have a lasting legacy on Mother Earth.
I only play AAA adult male shooters with brawny men covered in oils with their shirts off. I wear cargo shorts with big pockets, and I keep John Wick 1 and 2 in each side. Everywhere I go. I love guns, boobs, the girl, sports, and big meat sandwiches.
I have a hand grenade right here because I'm not a child, and they let me buy it at the Army Navy store.
I'm a huge adult man, and I stay up as late as I want, and I watch all the movies, and I eat pretzels, and I dip them in cheese and sauces. I'm a big, burly, tough adult man, and I'm not pre-ordering this. I definitely didn't pre-order it already last night because I definitely don't think it looks adorable. I absolutely can't wait to cover these things with stickers and construction paper and all sorts of wonderful illustrative designs that make me happy.
My testosterone caused me to grow facial hair as we were recording this segment. No way is Nintendo Labo for me.
I don't like the Nintendo Labo because I'm a huge adult boy.
I'm gonna go down to Big 5 Sporting Goods and buy real fishing poles with my American dollars.
This is not for me because I'm a real big tough man and I can grow a moustache in the middle of a show. I definitely didn't already pre-order this last night for $69.99 on Amazon.com, and I absolutely am not counting down the days until April 20th, 2018, when I can build this at home by myself and create a wonderful piano to play beautiful melodic tunes on and go fishing with my friends.
I hate children. I don't want any of them in my life. I only want cool things like 4K HDR and graphics.
Did you hear they're making a John Wick TV show?
On Stars.
The best channel for men.
All right, anyway. So Nintendo Labo, $69.99, out $420. Nice.
It's really hard to wear them. See, it doesn't stay when you have the hair already.
Yeah, tell me about it.
It looks like a dinosaur.
All right. Anyway, they're going to be real mad at us in the comments for that one.
Speaking of 70s mustaches, we're all very excited for Solo, a Star Wars story, a film that takes place in Star Wars, which is sort of like the 70s.
Yeah.
How was that?
That was a segue, kind of. So yeah, this is weird. Solo, a Star Wars movie, Star Wars story, whatever. It's coming out in...
you weren't wrong.
A few months.
Yep.
It comes out in April, is that right? May?
Yeah.
It's really close, and we haven't seen an official photograph from it. We haven't seen a trailer for it. They seem like they're really keeping this under wraps, and after all the kind of weird development hell rumors we've heard about them, firing the original directors, should we be worried or should we be kind of excited and
so we know
optimistic?
We saw Lord and Miller from the Lego Movie were on board writing and directing. Apparently, they were getting a little too loosey-goosey on set, and at the end of the day, when they brought in their results, it was not exactly what they were looking for. So they needed someone professional to come in and rein it in. Who better than Ron Howard, who's pretty by the books and will get it done. This week, Disney revealed an official plot synopsis for this movie, which outside of a logo, which is basically just the Star Wars font, and no trailer or anything like that, and some leaked press photos, and a couple of Instagram shots from Ron Howard, this is the most we have to go on this film. So I'm gonna read it for you real quick. Here it goes. Board the Millennium Falcon and journey to a galaxy far, far away in Solo, a Star Wars story, an all-new adventure with the most beloved scoundrel in the galaxy. Through a series of daring escapades deep within a dark and dangerous criminal underworld, Han Solo meets his mighty future co-pilot Chewbacca and encounters notorious gambler Lando Calrissian in a journey that will set the course of one of the Star Wars saga's most unlikely heroes. Solo, a Star Wars story, releases in US theaters on May 25th, 2018.
Wowzers.
So that's it. That's what we know.
That's it. We knew that already. We knew that's what it's about. I am very excited to hear that this is going to be focusing on the criminal underworld because so far we've gotten Force Awakens, The Last Jedi.
Apparently, Han Solo comes out on Brandon Hunt's birthday.
Oh, great.
Our producer has interrupted us to let us know that Brandon Hunt's birthday is May 25th. Let's cut to Brandon Hunt real quick. Congratulations, Brandon Hunt. The movie comes out on your birthday. Anyway, sit down, please. Anyway. Real tight ship we run here. Stop that. Get out of here.
Does anyone else, before we keep going, does anyone else have a birthday coming this year?
Do you guys have any other big movies coming on your birthday in the control room?
No, you don't.
No?
Oh, shut up.
Okay, all right.
Shh, stop.
Jordan, put your hand down. Your birthday was last week, and you were mad that we announced it. All right, anyway, sorry. Anyway, Solo, a Star Wars movie. I keep doing that. Star Wars. Just call it the Han Solo movie.
You're
anyway,
right.
So
You're
anyway,
right.
yeah. So this movie is cool because it is focusing on criminal underworld stuff, which I feel like we haven't really gotten a movie about.
No.
Like we got The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, which are obviously very hero focused. They're still kind of tidying things up from the whole Skywalker saga, and they're mostly about Jedi Force stuff, which is cool. That's people obviously like that in Star Wars. And then there was Rogue One, which is about the kind of military side of things. That was a Star Wars war movie. That was the whole pitch there. The thing that I've always loved the most in Star Wars is, of course, like the criminal stuff and the alien stuff. I like the smugglers, the cantina, the Nar Shaddaa.
Yeah, when things get kind of gross and grimy. I think that like Star Wars has this weird dichotomy of this very pristine inner battleship, the interiors of the Death Star, like these buttoned up dudes in like military outfits.
Yeah.
And then there's just like, I don't know, a guy with 3 tentacles on his face, and he's at a bar with a wolf, and they're yelling at each other. And like,
I like the idea
that
that this is a world where there are like drunk aliens, and there are like drug dealers who are also giant slugs, and there's like, I don't know, there's like a bunch of crime.
Bounty hunters,
yeah, and you're like, what are laws in this place, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the thing to focus on. That's really interesting.
And like, think about the first time we ever see Han Solo in A New Hope, right? He's just hanging out at the dirtiest bar in the world. There's all these disgusting animals in there. There's people trying to cut each other's arms off just for looking at you the wrong way. There's a bartender that's like racist against robots. It's great. It's just this big, messy place. It's horrible. There's a band in there. That's a great introduction to that character. And I think that like when people think about this movie, it's kind of the one where everyone's like, well, who asked for that? And you're right. But that's not really up to us, right? I think that like movie makers can come in and go, we have a story to tell. Lawrence Kasdan, who has written basically every version of Han Solo except for the one we saw in A New Hope. That includes the episode 7 and stuff like that. He's taking over the story. Like he has something to say here, and for him to come in and do this, I think that means that there's something important to be told about Han Solo. And I think that like we don't really need to know more about this character growing up. I don't need to know to see him in high school. No. But I'm really warming up to this film.
I'm excited about what it shows in kind of in the corner of the Star Wars universe. I think we know that it's set between, it's almost directly between Revenge of the Sith and Rebels, I think. Like there's this kind of like dark period where we don't really know what's going on. I'm also excited because like it's obviously we know who Han Solo becomes, but we don't know how this is going to leave off. Like is he going to be like still kind of a punk? Is he going to leave it open for sequels? Probably. There's probably going to be more Solo movies. This could be like a young Han Solo trilogy maybe. But like I don't know, it's Rogue One was like we know how it ends. It ends with A New Hope. They already made the immediate sequel to it. So I'm curious to see what they do. But yeah, we don't really have much to go on aside from Ron Howard's Instagram. So I figured we'd kind of take a look at some of the things that he's posted on his own personal page, and I don't know, talk about them.
Yeah, let's sort of just like, I don't know, geek out about everything we've seen so far. So on the right is concept art that I believe came from, was it Russia? It was like Disney Russia.
So that's going to be the thing that's on the corner of all the products.
Yeah.
That's going to be there, like they have, I don't know, they had Rey in the white background with the red stuff for The Last Jedi, or the Kylo Ren for the Force Awakens. It's going to be like that.
Yeah, so this will be for product shots, for marketing, all sorts of stuff. I don't think this will be actual posters or anything like that, but it gives us a good idea of what, the 2 main characters look like. Chewbacca in the corner, who unsurprisingly looks exactly the same. Chewbacca is something like 800 years old or something like that, so or 200 years old, doesn't really change. And then in the corner we have Khaleesi playing her new character in this movie, which I don't think we know the name of yet.
I believe her name is Kira.
Oh,
which is interesting.
Cool.
It's like QI''RA, which is funny because Rey's character was originally called Kira in like early versions of the Force Awakens script. So that's kind of an odd little sort of hand-me-down there. There's Brandon Hunt.
There he is.
He's there on Chewbacca.
Happy birthday this year.
Thanks. Good job, Brandon.
So on the left, obviously, here's the first shot of, very obviously put together, Lando Calrissian.
I was going to say Chun-Li.
Yeah,
that looks like Chun-Li's dress. I think that Chun-Li is going to be in Solo, a Star Wars. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Really.
Can we ditch the lower third there? There we go. Beautiful. That's a nice transition. All right. So it says, care to guess whose closet this is? I think we already did. Moving forward, we have this control panel, droids and people working together. Yes, there will be droids. These are all the official captions from his page. So we see what looks like astromech droids with weird little pincher claws, which is kind of interesting. What I like about this is it's going back to the prequels era, but also kind of leaning into some of the grimier side of stuff. So I think it's going to feel aesthetically a lot like A New Hope. So a lot of those crappy droids that you saw the Jawas roll out at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah,
I think you're going to start to see them here.
We need more of those. What I really hope we see here, and this is effectively, also that looks very much like a studio control board.
There we go. Oh
which
God,
makes you wonder, are they just using studio equipment there, or is that like a prop? Like, I don't really know.
Yeah, it's tough to say. Is that going to be in the movie, or is that how they're making the movie?
I think that they used actual studio equipment for some of the Death Star controls. I'm not sure, but yeah, basically, we haven't really seen a proper transition of prequel era stuff to original trilogy stuff, and we bits and pieces here and there in Rebels and in Rogue One, and really well in the comics. One thing I love is there's a bit in I think it's in the Darth Vader comic where there are like pirates, they're space pirates who bought a bunch of destroyer droids. Like, they bought a bunch of army surplus, like, droidicas.
Right.
And they're using them, and it's like, oh yeah, like, kind of like how you see, like, modern-day pirates who are carrying AK-47s that are, like, Cold War surplus.
Yeah.
So, like, the idea that there's, like, leftover munitions from the Clone Wars that people are using, maybe we'll see some of that. Maybe we'll see, like, a beat-up old battle droid just hanging out back there, or somebody's using it to, like, mop floors or something.
Yeah, that'd be cool, because we never saw those in any of the films again, despite there being thousands of them.
Yeah, so I like the idea that this is bridging the gap between the two.
What do we got next?
More droids. This one's got a bad motivator.
Yep. So here we go. There's the astromech droid just hanging out, different colored, but yeah, again.
I love Ron Howard's just like dad joke captions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty obvious one there.
If you look really closely in this image, you can see a droid, and then there's Ron Howard. Anyway, I love that. This one got me excited because I'm getting the feeling we're going to get a little bit of maybe some kind of I don't know, like the bar on Coruscant in Episode 2, or of Canto Bight in the Last Jedi. I love those scenes. Those are always my favorites. Also, is that just eating dried cranberries with a Nautilus shell?
Yeah, so we've seen. So I haven't shown you like any leaked set photos or anything like that. You can find them out there. You know, there's also leaked Lego sets we can talk about. But one of the things we know is that Woody Harrelson plays a character in this movie. We don't know if he's like a father figure or Han Solo's father, but he's sort of dressed like he's some sort of chancellor or something kind of important, right? He's in more of a kind of official chamber type of thing. He's not really in some grimy bar. So we don't really know a lot about him, but I don't know. Maybe that's his craft service table. Maybe that's where he has lunch. I think
he loves to eat potpourri. That's his weird vice.
Like I said, I think this movie is gonna have a good mix of the sort of like grimy underground stuff and then sort of the more polished, higher end stuff. So yeah, let's keep going.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so the Empire's in this movie. They'll obviously play a threat. They always have. They always will. So there we have the what was that?
That's like a Death Star commando.
That's right. What's
Imperial
one
commando?
of their
Whatever.
helmets.
Yeah.
Just sitting there on the control panel again. So
yeah, and that's some very original trilogy hardware there.
Yep. Again, kind of grimy looking background there. So I'm into it.
Yeah. And then there's Donald Glover.
Yep, wearing the Lando hair. That was the first time we saw him like this. Because again, outside of this shot on the right, which like still hasn't been officially released, we haven't really seen what this movie looks like yet.
No, I think there was a photo of him. Was he hanging out with Billy D. Williams? Did that happen?
I know that they had lunch. I
feel like there was a paparazzi photo of them having lunch together, which was pretty cool.
Right.
But if not, they just at least had lunch, which is nice.
Sure.
You know, who doesn't love a good meal? Hello, hello, hello. Anyway, I'm gonna take that off. This is funny.
Yeah.
It's just a car, but it's like a space car.
Oh, I love this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weird that he chose black and white for this. Also, whatever character is wearing gloves, which is odd.
I feel like a lot of people might wear gloves. I mean, Han Solo wears gloves in.
He wears the fingerless gloves.
Donald Glover might be wearing he might be the titular Glover. Anyway, that's a really bad photo there. That's like a Stargate.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. Tough neighborhoods contain doorways to adventure, mystery, and excitement. But again, showing the grimy criminal underbelly side of it. Many of you maybe didn't like Valerian, but I think Valerian, like the first third of it specifically, had a really cool section that kind of showed levels of that. It reminded me of something that Star Wars 1313, the canceled video game, was supposed to deliver us. This sort of deep dive into the criminal underbelly of a foreign, disgusting, nasty alien world. I really, really hope that that's where this movie goes.
Yeah. And then, of course, this one got a lot of people's attention. Spicy, you know, because the spice mines of Kessel, because the Kessel Run, probably a thing that's going to happen in this movie.
So, for those of you who remember, in A New Hope, Han Solo explains that the Millennium Falcon did the Kessel Run in under, what, 6 parsecs?
12 parsecs.
The Kessel Run was part of this place.
It's a charity marathon.
A charity marathon.
You have to eat a whole mouthful of nutmeg, and you have to run 12 miles. No, I mean this is space cocaine that they dig out of the earth because you know, George Lucas read Frank Herbert's Dune when he was younger. But yeah, it's I'm excited to see this as kind of as Star Wars lore has it. I think Wookiees were enslaved in spice mines a lot, and presumably that Chewbacca owes Han a life debt because he rescued him from slavery. So I think we're probably going to see that. I don't think that's like a spoiler or anything. That's kind of stuff that if you've been tracking Star Wars, you kind of pick up on that sort of thing.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I'm less enthused by the thought of seeing like a mine shaft, like kind of another space hallway, than I am seeing like a crazy space bar or like funky nightclubs with Nautilus shells full of crazens.
Yeah, I'm also less enthused about seeing a race.
Is it going to be a race though, or is it just going to be them trying to like? Is that like?
I mean, they're timing it, right?
I mean, I think it's more. I don't know. It's so parsec is actually distance. That's the whole thing. Is that the idea is that the navicomputers in Star Wars they plot a path, and the thing is the Millennium Falcon has such a good navicomputer that it's able to plot like a really efficient path. So basically, everyone else is using Google Maps, and the Falcon is using Waze. So it's able to be like, oh,
they're playing 4D chess over there.
No, they got off the freeway and took a bunch of side streets to get through a bunch of weird planets, and then that's how we got there in 12 parsecs. Anyway, this is a great shot.
Shooting a scene about desperate and dangerous times.
Yeah, nobody showed up that day. He's like, I'm gonna film it myself. I don't know.
I wonder if we're gonna find out about like Han's first real loss, and whether that's gonna be his father or his mother or his first girlfriend, whatever it is. This man shows up in A New Hope as a sort of selfish, not desperate, but very conniving, kind of cunning man that does sort of gain some heart and some trust with his friends. But even by the time he shows up in Empire Strikes Back, you know, Princess Leia is still pretty much like, get away from me, you gross dude.
Yeah. And then here's a really big one for Star Wars fans. Tag and Bink.
Yep.
If you're unfamiliar, Tag and Bink are characters introduced in the Dark Horse comics who I guess aren't technically canon anymore, but if they reintroduce them, then there you go. They're pretty much these guys who are always in the background. They're sort of like the Forrest Gump of Star Wars.
Right.
Like they're always there when something important is going down, but they're these two kind of bumbling officers who just sort of, you know, get through a bunch of stuff. So that's like a nice little bit of fan service in there, and I hope we see that. So. And then, of course, the really exciting shot here, the really good one, is his Ron Howard's shoes. Yep, there they are.
My trusty work boots were put to the test during today's action scenes for Untitled Han Solo movie. Obviously, this was before it was called Solo. Thanks to cast and crew for a powerhouse day. I only put this in here because I had to see this going through Ron Howard's Instagram, so now you do too.
Yeah.
But also, are we going back to Tatooine?
I don't think we are.
You don't think so?
I don't. Maybe.
I mean,
I don't know. I feel like it's just I love Tatooine. I'm also totally okay if we never go back there. I mean, maybe make like a Mos Eisley movie that's like 4 rooms with different directions. Anyway, but there's also plenty of other desert planets we could see. You know, I don't know. Maybe we see Ord Mantell. I don't know.
Or
Jakku. Yeah, Jakku. Who knows? Anyway, Solo: A Star Wars Story is coming out on May 25th. That's Brandon Hunt's birthday, and it's exciting. Lawrence Kasdan, he wrote it. He's done all the Han Solo movies that Han Solo's been in, except for the first one. Key difference: Harrison Ford isn't in this one, and Harrison Ford famously went through the script and changed a bunch of lines for his own. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this actually pans out. I think we're probably going to get a trailer around the Super Bowl. Seems like a safe bet, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that front. All right. So moving on, another big, huge game that's on the horizon is, sorry, not game, close enough, movie, Wreck-It Ralph 2. Was it Ralph Wrecks the Internet or something?
Yes.
Is that what it's called, really?
Yeah.
Seriously?
It's a bad title.
Oof. So yeah, everyone remembers Wreck-It Ralph as that amazing Disney movie that was like, what if Toy Story was about video games, but also was about candy?
Yeah, so it's called Ralph Breaks the Internet, Wreck-It Ralph 2. That is the full title. Breaks the Internet, obviously a nod to when Kim Kardashian wore that costume and poured champagne on her butt on a magazine cover. Great. Good job, Disney.
You think that's how that movie's going to end? Is Ralph's just going to be like, I'm going to wreck it, and he just is just butt naked?
Yeah, I hope so, because everyone remembers that. I hope they play just in Gangnam Style in its entirety too in the middle of the film. Anyway, so let's look at the concept art. Disney just released this the other day. It's very, very pretty.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
It's really good looking. There's a cat, you know, because the internet. There's wireless devices.
Yeah, I think we got a poster a while ago that had a bunch of like parodies of different like social networks and things. I don't know. I mean, we're obviously not quite the target audience here, we're old. We're not children who go to the movies to see cartoon movies, but we still see them, you know? I feel like the first Wreck-It Ralph was very much like it had a bunch of like retro arcade stuff that appealed to people our age, but also, you know, appealed to kids, and it had that Candy Crush mentality.
Yeah, so let's dig into that. The original Wreck-It Ralph movie is one of my favorite animated films of all time, but it's also one of the best video game movies. And that's not just because most video game movies are bad, that's because it handles video game lore in like a really respectful, really fun way, while sort of like kit bashing and mishmashing all of the best characters from video game history together in one film. It was a huge undertaking to sort of take things like, you know, M. Bison and Bowser and Pac-Man and basically some elements of Mario.
That's a Disney movie with a Metal Gear reference in it. Like,
it's really cool.
It's really cool that they have that. And now they're making one that's just about sort of the internet in general. And I guess mobile games, probably?
Yeah, so like the Grand Central Terminal Station of the original movie was this sort of arcade hub where Ralph and co. could go into different tunnels and pop into different video games. And that has so much room to be explored that it kind of sucks that they're turning their back on that and going to the internet.
Well, keep in mind that kind of modern day video games for a younger generation are mobile games.
Yeah.
They are games that are just, you get off the internet, you get on the App Store. I was down in LA with my family over the break, and I've got a bunch of like younger nephews and a niece, and I've got my Nintendo Switch, and I'm like, oh, you guys want to play Mario? And they're kind of like, yeah, Mario's cool, and like my niece got into it, but my two nephews were like, they were just screwing around playing like Minecraft.
Right.
They had no interest in like a video game console. They had like an iPad. They had mobile games. They had free-to-play, downloadable games that just kind of came to them over the internet, and they're tapping away and doing stuff on there. And then,
which I think is fine. I think going into the realm of mobile games was pretty fun. I think the fact that they spent most of the last movie in that game, Sugar Rush, might as well have been like an iPhone game, right? Like that is a Mario Kart knockoff you get for free on Android. But my issue with this is that video games, especially classic video game characters, are to this day pretty timeless, whereas the internet is full of memes. It's a moving target. Last week we did a segment on Kylo Ren being swole, and we're informed by the audience that it was already months old, even though it was 2 weeks old, because they had already moved on to
the internet's
Ugandan
very fast.
Knuckles.
Uganda Knuckles is the one that is the way, apparently.
When you work on a $100 million animated movie that takes 3-4 years to make, you're gonna have some old jokes in it. This is not a South Park episode where it takes 6 days to produce a show and go, hey, we got like Sunday's meme into Wednesday's episode. This is something where it's like, they're gonna pull up stuff from 2 years ago that we don't really remember. Guacamelee is one of my favorite video games of all time. That game is full of contemporary internet references from 4 or 5 years ago, and they don't really hold up. It's actually kind of odd going back and seeing stuff like Grumpy Cat in the video game.
That cat's dead now.
Yeah, we don't even think about that cat anymore. We regret to inform you. He's totally alive. And if he's not, they just got another one that looks like him.
Yeah, they cloned little Bub.
Our respect to the Grumpy Cat establishment and foundation. So there's my concerns. That being said, I think the writing's gonna be great. I think it's gonna be funny. I think it's gonna be gorgeous. It just feels like a miss because Wreck-It Ralph could continue to make awesome video game movie stories forever, but instead they're going out of the internet, and the internet gets old pretty fast. So then again, we keep showing up to it and doing what
Here we are. We're on the
internet.
internet. There's Wreck-It Ralph. Hopefully he takes his clothes off and pours champagne or some other sparkling wine on his bottom and breaks the internet. All right, moving on. The internet gave us something very nice this week. The announcement that there is a new Alien game in development. This is from, what are they called? Iron something Studios?
Cold Iron Studios.
Cold Iron Studios.
It's a team made up of people who worked on BioShock, Metroid Prime 3, Neverwinter, and City of Heroes.
That's mostly good.
Yeah.
But they released this announcement
They
saying
said
what they're doing. Don't show that yet. That's later. We'll come back to that.
They said, we are thrilled about the opportunity to explore an amazing and rich universe. Our background in building online worlds and taking established franchises to the next level in interactive entertainment is a precise fit with our product roadmap ahead. We can't wait to share more information soon. I love aliens, and I love precise fits for product roadmaps.
We here at Wayland Yutani are thrilled to announce our product roadmap. The stars are the future. Enlist today to join the colonies. Don't say product roadmap when you're talking about a beloved IP. Just don't do that. That's just a bad form.
Combining our love for art and money, we've decided to make business.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, I'm not saying this game's going to be bad. It's got a lot of good pedigree behind it.
Totally.
It could be really awesome. I mean, if they made a game that's basically like Destiny, which kind of everyone is trying to make, but with, you know, officially licensed xenomorphs in it. That would be kind of cool. Actual pulse rifles, you know?
Yeah, I will say that I was a little taken aback by the, you know, online worlds. I don't know what that means. That might not mean like persistently online worlds or something you have to always be connected to, or an MMO, or you know, anything like that. It could just mean a video game, right? So it's right now it's hard to dig into it. But what we can talk about is what works in Alien games, what doesn't work in Alien games, and what we want from this new one. So, you want to kick it off, Max?
Yeah, sure. So there was, a while ago, Obsidian revealed that they were working on an RPG that was going to be called Aliens Crucible. And I think there was some B-roll that floated around. But basically, I mean, it looked kind of like, it kind of looked like a KOTOR with aliens, which is cool, I guess. I mean, I think different people gravitate towards different parts of the Alien and Aliens universe. Obviously, it's a really weird big one because some people like Aliens, some people like Aliens. That's like the difference between Dead Space and Halo, effectively.
Right.
And then it gets real weird with Alien 3. That looks like a good fight right there. And then, yeah, clearly, Acid Blood is doing some damage. But what makes a good video game for it? Obviously, Alien Isolation won a lot of people over because it was so faithful to the source material, really just nailing that art direction. That the interiors were totally perfect. All of like all of the weird VHS-looking computer interfaces.
Yeah, they completely nailed the aesthetic.
And then fitting into the timeline in a way that made sense without being like, you know, a total ruining of everything like Aliens Colonial Marines. At the same time, the fact that Alien Colonial Marines was so bad because like basically every first-person shooter was borrowing a little bit from Aliens.
Yeah.
You go back and you look at like, you know, Doom and Duke Nukem 3D and early stuff like that, and it feels like Aliens.
Dude, there's a ripped-off xenomorph on the box art for Contra.
Exactly, yeah. Like video games and Aliens have always been like right there. So for like Gearbox to come out and be like, oh, yeah, here's this thing we made, it's like, how did you screw it up that badly?
Yeah.
Like, how did, like, really?
Yeah, I mean, the animation was bad, the hit detection was bad, the pacing was bad. Like, Gearbox really messed that one up. Sega blamed them for years. They went back and forth. They went litigious with it. They were in court with each other fighting over the alien. It's just ugly, just really ugly.
And then there was actually one that came out kind of in the, just alongside that, Way Forward, who makes a bunch of kind of cool like 2D Metroidvania types games. They made one called Aliens Infestation, which was effectively Super Metroid, hard as balls, but with Colonial Marines. And they had this interesting sort of roguelike element where your lives were rescued Space Marines. So you'd be running through this area and you'd find like a dude, you'd rescue him, and then he'd be like one of your lives. And that was kind of a cool approach. We've both been super hardcore into Bloodborne lately.
Yeah.
You've played it a bunch of times. You're actually replaying it.
Yeah,
I just totally started playing it this last weekend.
It was weird because I texted you on Saturday and I was like, hey, I started playing Bloodborne again. And you're like, I'm downloading it now. And I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think you would ever really stick with a game like, or jump into a game like this, because it's terrifying and it's really hard and it pushes back a lot.
Well, honestly, it's kind of funny. That's sort of my relationship with Alien. With Aliens, like I remember seeing trailers for Alien 3 on TV when I was a kid and just being like having nightmares, being utterly terrified, and just being like, but at the same time like weirdly fascinated and being like, I mean, they put out, like Kenner put out the original kind of Gorilla Aliens figure, and I was like, that thing is so cool, but I'm scared of it. And my friend Marty, not the one who works here, different Marty, had the toy, and he'd like scare me and chase me around the house with it. I'd be like, don't get that away from me, because I was like a wussy little kid. But then as I got older, I was like, I need to go back and get into Aliens, and I got really into Aliens, and I love Aliens. It's weird because I've actually loved that series longer than I've loved Star Wars.
Right.
So it's frustrating to see it kind of exist in this odd space where even Ridley Scott, I feel like, misses the point of what makes that series. He's like, yeah, the xenomorph can come or go. I really want to focus on the AI.
I wanted to give a quick shout out to Aliens vs. Predator, which I forgot about, but came out in 2010. It was made by Sega. It basically was like a multiplayer shooter with a single player campaign that let you play as aliens or predators or the Colonial Marines.
Hey, you know, it's kind of a weird precursor to the modern day hero shooter.
That's true.
An asymmetrical shooting game where different classes have different, entirely different like skill sets.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
That could sort of work as an online game. So.
Back to Bloodborne Souls. Max is playing Bloodborne right now. I'm playing Bloodborne right now. We're at the same part in the game and just sort of talking to each other about all the gross, disgusting monsters around there. It got us thinking, like, that would be a perfect fit for that franchise.
Yeah.
And I know everyone always says, like, oh, make Dark Souls out of this, make Dark Souls out of that. Bloodborne meets Alien is so smart because of the way aliens work. They can effectively impregnate or infect anything, which gives you a wide palette of disgusting, awful, dripping wet nightmare monsters to create. They're also deadly as hell, so they can tear your face off, they can burst out of your chest, you have jump scares, you have small-scale enemies and face huggers.
It's this really tight balance between horror and action, which is exactly what the first two Alien movies are.
Right.
I mean, even the original 4 of them. So like maybe you do something with that, and I love the idea of just also the environment you're being in just being utterly terrifying. I mean, the alien hive is like, you're like, oh, we're in a hallway, oh, there's acid melting through the floor. This is a very bad place and we should go back. But like, what if you had to keep going and you had to keep digging through it? And
that's right. And with games like The Surge and Neo, which were released last year, we got to see the sort of Souls-born genre kind of move into different directions that we'd never seen before. One of them being this kind of used future post-apocalyptic, almost Fallout-looking thing. And the other being, you know, samurai feudal Japan. There we go.
Yeah,
Perfect.
what if you get like, I mean, like, give me like a power loader.
So,
fight the aliens with it.
Ben Nicholas, who is a concept artist, actually put this on Twitter. Casey Lynch, who used to be the editor-in-chief at IGN, tweeted this out this morning. So let's take a look at it. This is his sort of concept for what a Dark Souls alien game would look like.
So I have a few little nitpicks here.
Shout out to
I think
Ben.
the queen is much too big, but it's also very scary.
Yes.
Which I like. Also, I like how
The
that
man might be very small.
Yeah, the Onion Knight also. What's that guy's name? The Onion Knight? I don't know. But his whole thing, he does kind of actually look like an original Alien spacesuit.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
Yeah, so I don't know. Let us know what you want to see from the next Alien game. Obviously, it's being made. Do you want an MMO? Do you want Destiny with aliens? Do you want a top-down shooter? Do you want a side-scroller? Do you want Souls-born aliens like we do? Let us know. Tweet at us, use the hashtag up at noon, or leave a comment.
Yeah, so one thing video games would not be is, they would suck without music. I don't know how I screwed that segue up. We said a lot of words this episode. We've been doing a lot of talking. We got a chance to kind of sit down and talk with a guy named Nick Dwyer, who runs Diggin' in the Carts. Diggin' in the Carts is a wonderful internet video series, a documentary on the history of where video game music came from. He's turned that video series into now a radio show as well as a concert series. Let's take a look. And welcome back. We are here with Nick Dwyer, who is behind the video series Diggin' in the Carts turned radio show turned kind of live event series, which is taking the people behind kind of classic video game music like Streets of Rage and really just elevating their art form and going into how video game music used to be made. And how did video game music used to be made?
Oh man, back in the day, it was a laborious, long process. I mean, if you go right back, it was, you know, if you speak to people like Hip Tanaka, who was part of the series, the video series, and it's, you know, he was one of the first composers at Nintendo back in the day. But, you know, he got to start making sound effects for Nintendo arcade machines, and it was all like transistors and capacitors and you know, very like rudimentary tools. And then as things progressed, you know, a lot of numbers, it was all coding. You know, they had no way to play back things, so you'd have to burn ROMs.
Yeah. I think there's a misconception that like video game music is just as simple as like making something on a synthesizer and then kind of porting it over into the game. And kind of more recently that's the case, but back then you really had to build it from the ground up.
Right.
Absolutely, man. I mean, one of the coolest things, I don't know if, you know, any of you guys have seen it or any of the audience has seen it, but the Digging the Carts video series, one of my favorite parts is there's this woman called Junko Ozawa, who was one of the early composers at Namco. And Namco in the early mid-'80s were kind of the company that was pioneering video game music. And basically they, you know, they kind of revolutionized video game music with what was called wavetable synthesis. So basically what that would mean is, you know, back in the day, I'm sorry to get too technical, but you would have like PSG sounds. You'd have like simple square waves and what have you, that, you know, could produce certain sound, like a sound wave. But with wavetable synthesis, they could start creating their own bespoke sound waves. And what they would do is they would record the sound of instruments like violins and cellos, study the waveforms, and then they would kind of draw them and kind of create these you know, these 8-bit sounds that would sound as close as they could to guitars and cellos, and they were all just doing it like hand-drawn waves. And she shows the audience her book of her own waves that she created, and she calls them her treasures. And it's a really, really beautiful moment in the series, and it just goes to show you that, yeah, back in those days, it was a long, laborious, it was a difficult, cumbersome process.
So Nick, because of that, because of those limitations, we got so much amazing. We got so many amazing video games. We got amazing video game music. Because I think that sort of when you're limited with the amount of space you can use, you're limited with the amount of colors you can use when designing a video game. Great art comes from those limitations. But nowadays, video game music is just music, right? So, like, is there still a really big community holding on to that original sort of limitation and using that as an inspiration to creating?
Well, look, man, I mean, you completely and utterly nailed it, and it goes for all art. You know, some of the greatest art comes when people, have limitations, and especially, this kind of evolution of video game music is almost paralleled with the evolution of electronic music, where, some of the most revolutionary electronic music, be it early house, be it jungle, it was composers and producers just getting inside. They'd have one machine, they'd have one sampler, and they would just get inside that piece of technology and more often than not push it way beyond what the original intention for that machine was. And there's a couple of things that play with the early era of video game music, and especially Japanese video game music, that I absolutely love. And one is exactly that. It's these limitations that forced them to be creative, and they would sit there and just figure out ways that they could come up with new techniques to do, phasing or echoes or all these sorts of things. But also it was the accident. A lot of these composers were, heavily inspired by, say, Japanese fusion, or they were listening to jazz, and they were trying to create jazz or create fusion, but with sound channels, and not getting there, obviously. But it was the accident of not getting there that created something truly original as a byproduct. And when the CD era came in, when things became like, it all switched to MIDI, then they could just make jazz, they could just make fusion, they could just make rock. But really, I think, myself and I know millions of other people around the world love so much about that era is that it was its own unique form of electronic music. And I guess that's what we've been trying to do, I think, first of all, with the video series, is to first and foremost get people to understand that, yes, there were these men and women making this music. Because when you're a kid, you don't think that there's someone like going, I just went to a club. Like, think about Yuzo Koshiro. Max, you just held me up before we started this interview, the Streets of Rage soundtrack, and he was 20 years old. It was at the height of, there you go. It was the height of the bubble era in Tokyo, which, if anyone knows, like, Japan was experiencing an economic boom in the late 80s. The clubs were booming, house and techno had arrived, and young video game composers like Yuzo, he would go out, he'd hear the latest house and techno from Detroit and Chicago, and then go back to his house and then try and create that on a Mega Drive, like with FM synthesis.
Well, what I love about this is he's still like, he's a salaried game developer. Yeah. Like, it wasn't like he had a keyboard in his garage and he's like, I'm going to be the next big like house musician. He was like, oh, I'm making a component for a piece of software. And then, decades later, you're approaching him and being like, "Hey, do you want to do that live?" How do you make that leap from like doing those hand-drawn waveforms to doing this as a live performance?
Okay, so it was an interesting one. And always with evolving. Right from the moment we did the Digging the Cards video series, I always kind of had this bigger kind of picture in mind, which was to kind of bring the world of Japanese video game music closer together with the electronic music world from, outside of Japan that it heavily inspired. And if you look at the video series, you've got a large part of the most influential electronic music and the most cutting-edge electronic music producers in the world right now, who all say, people like Flying Lotus, people like Thundercat, people like Just Blaze, who all say, without a doubt, what prepped me for a future of electronic loops, what got me into electronic music was the music of video games, and in particular Japanese video games. And it was it was all those hours and hours with the Blanca theme going on in the background, or being stuck on a particular Mario stage, but the music was so dope that you didn't, you kept playing it because those guys really cared about the loop. I'm going on a tangent anyway.
You're completely on point. I produce music myself, and that's absolutely something that got me into it to begin with. And I think with the way we look at motion pictures now, you have people like Hans Zimmer, you have John Williams. You see their names, and it's big, it's iconic. They just announced that John Williams is doing the music for Episode 9, and it's a big news story. He's a household name. But with video games, we don't really have that yet. How do we sort of raise that awareness? How do we sort of get, like, what are you guys doing specifically to kind of get those names into the vernacular of people?
Well, I think definitely things are starting to happen. And going back to what you were saying before, going back to what we were saying before, with this idea of doing evolving it into the compilation, and then the live series is first and foremost, the documentary series was to explain the context, to explain the context, to let people know that there was a story behind it, and these incredible men and women who, as you say, they were like salary men, salary women, they were ordinary office workers who would just go into their office and sit in a tiny cubicle, and they'd want to know, how can I make this the player's experience the most enjoyable and give them music that won't tire them. I think with doing the Digging the Carts compilation, and especially teaming up with a label like Hyperdub, which is within the electronic music spectrum, they're one of the most respected labels for cutting edge electronic music. And Code 9, who's the boss of the label, really got it. The idea was, we didn't want it to be just a greatest hits. We didn't want it to be like just big Final Fantasy tunes or Mario tunes. We listened, went through the entire history and picked out pieces of music that, when you take them out of the game and just listen to them on their own as a piece of music, it is incredible, pioneering electronic music. And then when you all of a sudden add to that the backstory and the context of how difficult it was to make that piece of music, really, you kind of start to really see it as a thing of beauty. And then finally with these live shows, in terms of globally, video game music has been celebrated for decades now, with orchestras performing, be it the music of Zelda or the music of Final Fantasy, music of Dragon Quest. That's very much, a celebration of composition, right? And without a doubt, Koji Kondo, Nobuo Uematsu, Koichi Sugiyama, incredible composers. And testament to that is, like, if you go on Classic FM, which is, I think, the biggest classical music radio station in the world, and their top 100, it's constantly filled now with music from people like Nobuo Uematsu and video game music. But I think for us, it was a celebration of that era and that sound palette, like the sound palette of that chip era. And we wanted to try and bring, that sound palette, that vibe from that era to the live stage. And to be honest, it wasn't that difficult. I mean, when I approached Yuzo, he thought I was crazy, but he was really, he really loved the video series. So he was like, "All right, Nick, you've got a big bold dream. I trust you. I'm going to get behind it." Because nothing like this had ever been done before, and Yuzo had definitely, he's been involved in many of these, symphonic tributes to his music. And we discussed it for, we went back and forth on ideas and how we could build it. His old partner in crime, Motohiro Kawashima, who was involved in Streets of Rage 2, but heavily involved in Streets of Rage 3. He is, he's 54 and he still produces like killer electronic music to this day. So, we thought, look, we'll pair the both of them up. And the idea was to present the music exactly how it is on the game, but amplified on a massive club sound system. And, and people really realized just how incredible it was. I mean, it's all like they're using it's sequenced live, but basically they're using the exact same chip sounds, playing all the leads, playing all the sound effects, reworking certain things, affecting everything. But essentially what you're hearing is that music that was in the game, but just loud on some of the best club sound systems in the world. And
I love that.
We had the first show in LA, and it was incredible. It was it was just because we'd done these practices, but we'd never heard it yet on a massive PA, and just everyone was just like had their mind blown. Like they were like, oh, so they've reworked this music, right? They've redone it. It's like, no, this is exactly how it sounded.
Well, I mean, it took 25 years, but it came from its inception in the club scene, and it actually finally hit the club, There it is. Digging in the Carts, of course, the video series is out there for people to check out. There's also Digging in the Carts Radio. Where can people find that?
Yes, man. Red Bull Radio is where you can find Digging in the Carts radio series. It's, I'm so thankful to those guys for giving me that opportunity. I come from a background of radio. I've been doing radio for maybe 25 years, and to be able to basically go in and just research, spend a couple of months listening through 250,000 tracks and then picking out my favorites to turn it into a radio series has been incredible. We did, the first season came out in 2016, and then we just had 2017, the new season's launched. The thing about Red Bull Radio is it is basically, unfortunately, if you're in the US, you cannot listen to it on demand, but if you Red Bull Radio, you can. It's replayed on the regular, and we've got a marathon coming up really, really soon. So it's basically the whole season will be replayed a lot over the upcoming months, and then I'm just about to start getting into prep and research for season 3.
Wonderful.
Awesome,
check those out. And Nick, thank you so much for joining us. Real quick, real fast, if there's one track that people have to check out from the history of video game music, what is it?
Oh God, I get asked this a lot, and you know what? I don't deliberately mean to do this, but it just so happens that the more deep you dig, the shinier the treasures you find. Over the course of the last kind of couple of years, I've been, I've listened to the entire history now of Japanese video game music, like 500,000 tracks. And there's this one guy called Manabu Saito, and his music is like nothing else. He sadly passed away at the age of 22 of kidney failure. And if he'd gone on to live, he would have been one of the greats. But he just made music for like all these Japanese home PCs that kind of never ever left Japan.
That's
even
a deep
Japan.
cut. What's the one track? One track, gun to the head. What is it?
Oh God. You know what? I'm gonna give you something. I should really give you something more well. Manabu Saito is a composer, but I don't know. I think like if I'm gonna go for one track. Oh my God, what is that one track?
Big Blue from F-Zero.
I'm gonna go Nobuo Uematsu's Serpent Trench. Just awesome. Right now. It's
Perfect.
just like it reminds me of Underground Resistance, and it's something that everyone can check off the Final Fantasy VI soundtrack. It's killer. People know that one.
Awesome. Nick, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody go check out Digging in the Carts, and we'll have more up at noon in just a second. Hey, and we're back. So once again, that was Digging in the Carts. Our lower third said cards. I apologize. Yeah, it's a gorgeous video series. Go check that out. And if you, I don't know, if they're doing a concert in your area, go check that out too. I love that we are getting like proper treatment of video game soundtracks like that.
Yeah.
What are you up to?
Do you have the Jurassic Park Jeep?
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Can we talk about that real quick? Because I really love that.
Okay. So we love old 90s and 80s movies with Stan Winston special effects. Jurassic Park, the original, turns 25 this year, which means that we are exactly old enough not to be able to ride in this beautiful, officially licensed $400 Power Wheels because it only holds up to 130 pounds. Why didn't they make this when we were children?
Because everything sucks, Max. They didn't have anything cool when we were kids, and now they make everything cool for kids, and they're just on their phones.
Unrealistic Jeff Goldblum action figures.
Yeah.
I mean, like, we could...
Did you have I had the Dennis Nedry action figure that just looked like a regular man. I don't know what they based that off the book.
I think they were like afraid to make him like too fat or something. That was Kenner in their like Pete Kenner, where they were like, just make a guy. Like those dudes were literally making action figures in themselves for the hell of it.
This is awesome. This also reminds me, last year at San Diego Comic-Con, you and I did a video on the Luke Skywalker land speeder.
Yeah, that was
It's for kids also.
I think that was like a radio flyer. That's not like, because I think Power Wheels is Mattel or something.
So what the hell? Kids have cooler cars than the adults?
Yeah, and this is really stupid because we're adults now and we could get real Jeeps. Like, we could get a real car.
Yeah.
But we don't want that. We want the toy one.
I don't
want to have
the
fun car.
I want a small one that's like $400 that I can crash.
So yeah, the press release for this is the Jurassic Rex and the Velociraptors are on the loose. Your young adventurer knows just what to do. Hop into their Power Wheels Jeep Wrangler vehicle and get moving. With awesome Jurassic Park graphics and styling, exciting dino chase sounds, and a real working light bar, kids will feel like they're driving the real thing. Racing at a max speed of 5 miles per hour over hard surfaces and grass with power lock brakes and a parent-controlled high-speed lockout, young off-roaders will love steering Jurassic adventures in this exciting ride-on.
Does it come with the cup of water? There it is. You can see it. There's our first video of it in action.
Look at all that.
Drive over
It's
anything.
got all-terrain transmissions or something.
And it's just covered in smoke.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
I really
actually,
hope it comes with a cup of water.
funny thing about this, you can get a cup of water. Just go to the.
No, I need the official one.
All right. The official Jurassic
I
Park
need
cup
the
of water.
official Jurassic Park Steven Spielberg enthused cup of water.
That'd actually be a really fun replica to sell. Be like the Jurassic Park water. Check
should-
this out. It's got real shaking action.
We should sell that outside of the movie theater.
That'd be great.
We should just get little like dentist cups.
So what I love about this is a few years ago on Reddit, there was some awesome like crafty like Etsy dad who was like, I wanted to make a Jurassic Park Jeep for my kids. He bought a Barbie one and just entirely repainted it so it wasn't a stupid Barbie Jeep. It was in fact a Jurassic Park Jeep. Now the official real thing is out there. These are out later this year. They are $398, so that's Power Wheels have always been expensive. I don't know what to tell you. This has been Up at Noon.
That's our show.
Yet
We did it.
another episode.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, we'll be back next week with more goofy toys and nonsense and hanging out and whatnot. Yeah, you can follow us both on Twitter. I'm Max Scoville. He's Agent Bizzle. And I hope you have a great Friday and then subsequent weekend. And there's Dan's thumb.
It's Jurassic Park. You can drive the car. You can be drinking all your water. Driving around your car with the Velociraptor and the dinosaur is mad. It's Jurassic Park and it's a. Is it done? Are we done? Did we finish? I can do the whole.
Just
I can
stop.
do the whole.
Turn the camera off,
I'll do
please.
all 4 movies.
Please don't do that.
All 4 movies.
Don't sing the Jurassic Park
It's
3
Jurassic
theme.
Park 3. There's a raptor whistle and they use it to. Hey, what's going? Thanks for watching this. Is that good night? Good night.
Just end it, please.
Thank you.
He needs his lunch.